Greece? Well, Greece is probably the same, yeah, even a bit better probably than Spain. Now I'm not sure which is better, but let's say unemployment in Germany, right? These are two different pictures, of course. And that means, of course, that there has to be more economic coordination in Europe, coordination of economic policies in European Union. And this is actually happening now, and it's being very much streamlined. So EU institutions have these days a lot of leverage actually to coordinate how the countries agree on their even annual budgets, how they agree on which policies they will support. And of course, European Union has now a lot of leverage investing into common European projects. So for example, I mentioned energy union, right? This is something where actually a lot of European Union budget will be invested in the future. There's a huge investment fund created of a value of more than around 315 billion euros. And this fund, for example, will invest in things like energy efficiency of the buildings, helping support some of the national business champions, and so on and so on. So here I think in Europe, I mean, Europe is facing a lot of issues, unemployment, unequal incomes, and so on, but it's also doing a lot to solve these problems. One of the solutions also is to look at the taxation issues, and I mentioned Apple already, right? This is, for example, a big issue, of how you're going to tax in the future big international companies, whether you will keep to the principle of taxing these companies where they make incomes, or whether you will allow them to evade the base of taxation, shift profits around the countries, and so on and so on. So this is another issue, for example, where European Commission is looking very much hard and trying to define it. So finishing, and the last sort of final touch, what does this whole mean for Ukraine? Brexit, migration, economy, things, where does it lead you? Should you be worried about what is happening now in European Union? And this is the question for you. I mean, are you worried in principle? Yes. Yeah, Professor is. Okay. Is worried as well. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think definitely, I think Ukraine has a very big stake in what's happening in European Union, and you have to. I think you have to, as a student of economy, I think you have to very much follow what's happening in the European Union, and for the very good reason, because Ukraine and EU now are actually very close partners. I mean, we have super privileged relations. In the past, let's say, 2.5 years, European Union actually helped Ukraine really to stay afloat. With big financial injections for the macroeconomic stability, for example, in Ukraine. Actually, we as delegation of European Union in Ukraine, every year we invest around 250 million euros into Ukrainian reforms. So it's a lot of money, and we have probably 200 projects all the time in Ukraine, from Odessa to Ivano-Frankivsk, which are actually in one way or another trying to help Ukraine to become a modern country, to become a much more successful economic country, economically. So definitely, I think you should be very much caring what's happening in the European Union, and of course you should probably in the future care more how to make these relations even stronger in the future. So I don't want to torture you more from my side, but maybe there are some questions or comments to some of these big European challenges. Please. Yeah, please.
So I think this money, I fully support this lady, this European money supports Ukrainian corrupted government. That's why we don't have reforms on integration. And if so, European Union must stop supporting corrupted government of Ukraine. Otherwise, we will not have any changes because you make them stronger. And it's very difficult for us, people in Odessa, students to fight with this government that receive money from International Monetary Fund, from the European Union, from the United States. They have billions. And that's why they are so strong, we can't do anything now.
Okay, good point. Good point. We are doing that as well. We actually invested very recently about 17 million in actually building, renovating, let's say, available общежития or things like that across the municipalities close to, especially in the eastern regions of Ukraine, exactly for these purposes. So we're yeah, well, that's the end goal. But look, I think this question, I think, which was asked, I mean, this is not the first time I get this question. I try to travel a lot in Ukraine, and a lot of actually our interlocutors believe that all the money and the projects we do in Ukraine, they don't bring results for the common people like you, and that they end up somewhere, you know, in Kiev corridors, and people, you know, walking with cases full of euros and then dividing them between themselves. Actually, this is not true. I mean, there are good reasons why it is not true. First of all is that we actually in the delegation manage all the projects ourselves.